What is up, everybody? I am Jason Sellers, and welcome back to the Jason Sellers Politics Podcast. This is the podcast, if you don't know, where we talk about Minneapolis politics, Minnesota politics, American politics, and world politics in that order, as in we talk about Minneapolis politics the most and world politics the least. I am your host, Jason Sellers. I'm a 19-year-old college student in Minneapolis, and I like politics and government. You can, for more stuff, you can follow me on Instagram at VoteSellers, follow me on Twitter at VoteSellers, subscribe on YouTube, Jason Sellers Politics, if you're listening to this on Spotify, and follow on Twitch, VoteSellers. Again, I don't know, I said this last time, I don't know if I'll be using Twitch much, because that's originally was just so I could live stream these podcasts, but the live stream quality is pretty terrible. The date is Friday, January 14th, 2022. We are in through the first week of the new term. Technically, the oath of offices were taken by the mayor and the new city council about 2 weeks ago, but the public one was last Monday. Mayor Fry gave his inaugural address. I listened to it somewhat. I was kind of zoned out a little bit because I was tired. And then I've been watching the organizational city council meeting over the past couple of days. I will say I am disappointed in the results of the vice presidential election for the city council. I know that the presidential election for Andrew Jenkins was going to be unanimous. That wasn't a surprise, but I was really hoping Elliot Payne, a more progressive voice, would get the vice president position, as opposed to Linnea. Is it Linnea or Linnea Palmisano? More of Minneapolis moderate, as it's kind of Minneapolis is kind of the progressives versus the super progressives. Although people will debate whether or not the progressives are progressive or are progressive enough to be called progressives. They're definitely more progressive than most people in government, at least on the federal and state level. Yeah, what the president and vice president does is, I guess I'll say it's confusing, when in reality I don't really know what they do. There's an article that Jason Garcia linked. They linked an article that was written by somebody about what the president and the vice president of the city council does, and then I looked on Jason's profile, and I couldn't find where they linked it. But you should read it if you can find it. I tried looking it up, and I also still couldn't find the article, so I am gonna try to do more research and see what they do. Today's episode is kind of an impulse episode. I was watching the city council stuff. I was looking like, oh man, can I get a job in city council working for, or not in city council, but in city hall working for one of the city council members, or could I be a staff member or something in city hall? And then I was like, oh man, I'm in the politics, but let's do a podcast. And so I was thinking, what topic should I do? And I've practiced running a mayoral campaign. I've outlined a mayoral campaign in the past, and so today I am just explaining what I would do in my campaign, and I'm explaining some of the programs and projects I would want to do. So let's start off with my campaign outline. One of the highlights. All right. Obviously, I'm going to do brochures. I'm going to do door knocking. I'm going to do phone calls, and I'm going to spend money on ads and stuff. But let's do some of the unique stuff. I'll do a heavy emphasis on endorsements I might start this year for the state election and Congress election primaries. One thing, I only do endorsements for places I can vote in. I would have endorsed Cam Gordon for Ward 2 last year. I don't live in Ward 2 though, so I didn't. I only endorsed my ward and my park district and the mayor. Well, I didn't endorse the mayor. I endorsed Sheila Najad, who didn't win for mayor. I should also mention I'm doing this because I had class this week on Monday through Thursday, and today's Friday. So maybe the podcast will be a Friday thing, maybe every other Friday, maybe every Friday if I have topics or guests lined up. But Fridays seem to be my day off, so I'll do that then. So I would do a heavy emphasis on endorsements, both for primaries and general elections. Obviously, Tim Walz wouldn't be my ideal governor. He's not progressive enough, but he's not bad. I mean, he's a Democrat, so if he wins primary, which he probably will, let's be real here, I will endorse them against whoever the Republican is. Talked about this a little bit on my last episode. I went over the list on Wikipedia of who the candidates are. There's Gazelka and Jensen and Benson and um, forgetting someone. And then I would do, let's see, so the next election's not until 2025 for mayor. So if I was running for mayor, I would endorse the 2022 people, the 2023 city council candidates, the 2024 presidential, both for primary, Democratic primary and general election, and then 2025 city council as well. Rallies. So these would be small things, and I even planned doing a couple when I was quote unquote running for mayor in 2021, doing some local parks, spread out because of COVID. And this is something I would do. I'd start out small at like a local park with with a goal audience of 8 or 10, and then grow into school auditoriums or lunchrooms, and uh, um, just hold rallies where I tell people why they should vote for me. Twins game with Jason is something I would want to do. Like 3 times, I'd rent a suite. It would cost it would be like a $50 admission. Um, it's like a $50 donation. You get to come see a Twins game in a suite with me and some other people, and we get to talk about stuff you care about, both politically and government-wise. Now, the logistics, I don't know. I looked it up, how much a certain suites cost at Target Field, and I'd choose Twins games because one, they're in the summer, and that's the last season before the election. Obviously, there's Vikings, but that's most of the season is after the election. Second, Twins games are the cheapest you can get. I mean, there's Saints games. First of all, it's St. Paul. Second of all, it's minor leagues, and I am of the thought process that if what I'm watching isn't the highest level of competition, why am I watching? Like college, I get it's the high, like D1, it's like the highest level of college you can get. High school, it's the highest level of high school you can get, kind of, because you can only play for high school. Legion, I'm talking about high school though. There's Legion and stuff as well. And then baseball, I don't want to watch any of the minor leagues because MLB is the highest you can get. The Olympics, I don't like watching sports like baseball and basketball because it's not the highest level of competition. Because the best players in the world play in the NBA. I also wouldn't watch the G League because it's not the highest level of competition. So I would do that. I would have a state fair booth where there's a little booth with some either volunteers or campaign team members. Has a banner that says Jason from Minneapolis or something, and then on the bottom it says Jason Sellers for mayor. And it'd have sheets. It had a little spreadsheet where you could write your name and your email address and whether you want to donate or volunteer or whatever. And it would have fact sheets and information and stuff about me. And then I would be there on opening day, and then the Saturdays, and then Labor Day. That's 4 days, I think. Opening day Thursday. I don't like counting with my thumb. Opening day Thursday. First Saturday, second Saturday, Labor Day. Just because I can't spend all my time there. And then I would obviously emphasize my policies. I don't know if policy is the right word. My ideology, what I would care about, what I would run on, and what I would do if I won. So the things I've written down: safety. Safety was never my first priority when I was first running. I actually started running back in March of 2020, and that was even before George Floyd. And but safety, I've realized the importance. Like how I never realized how unsafe people feel, and it's not just homicides and violent crimes and carjackings. It's policing. So safety would be one of my number one priorities. I do think police officers are necessary in certain situations. I don't think we need as many as we do. I do think the union is a corrupt system, and they should be able to be fired more, like Jacob Fry says. Whether or not they should be paid more is interesting because you want to have incentives for them to be good police officers. But at the same time, if they need that incentive, they're really good police officers. And at the same time, having mental health workers, mental health teams, uh, and other first responders other than police, other than armed police especially. Health was my biggest one. And by health, I mean not just like uh, pandemic. This is really before the pandemic. It was after coronavirus like started and got to the U.S., but it was before it was declared like a pandemic and stuff. It might have been before it was even called COVID. Hence why I said coronavirus. But health in terms of exercise and nutrition and education about exercise and nutrition and resources. Um, Resources for cheap, if not free, healthcare, resources for exercise, resources for education, stuff like equipment at parks or gyms, or cheap membership options for gyms, or clinics that you can visit. Yeah, I know there's certain things you can get for free at clinics, but more stuff. I mean, the American healthcare system, I'm not the first person to say this, obviously. The American healthcare system, oh my god. So, health would be a big thing, especially exercise and nutrition. I think the curriculum um, for school should be better. I was required to take one semester of health, and I learned stuff, but at the same time, it wasn't that engaging, and I feel like a lot of people probably don't learn that much stuff. So maybe more stuff, like maybe employment. Like you need to learn about certain stuff just to be employed. I don't know. Like corporations have to. This is just an idea I'm coming up with now. Corporations have to make you, in addition to your regular training, you have to do watch videos about how to keep yourself healthy, just to um, save the look of the company. No, to I don't know. I feel like companies would go with that because it does save the look of the company, or it improves the look of the company. Education, big one. Now this is tough because on a mayoral level, I should also mention I do want to talk about like if I was governor or president in some of these scenarios, but education is something I care about a lot. Now the school district is different, because it's not. School board is weird. It's not weird. It's just I don't know much about it right now. And again, in my last episode, I said my goal for 2022 was just to learn, and I want to learn things. So that's why I'm here. Education's a big one, though. I feel like education needs to be. I feel like it needs to be shorter. I had a project in ninth grade where I had to talk about a cause I cared about. My thing was stress in schools. I sent an email to or it's actually a letter to the superintendent of Minneapolis Public Schools. He actually mailed me back, and there's rules how they have to have a certain amount of programming to get funding, and it's a statewide thing or a federal thing. It's probably something I can't really do on the city level. But if you watch the Michael Moore documentary, Where to Invade Next, they talk about school in Finland and how the days are so short, and how scores are higher and education's higher because kids aren't so stressed out. School lunch is another important thing. My friend actually did something on school lunch on that same project, and his was actually really good. Apparently, somebody came to the school. Oh, way to go! Why wasn't mine good enough? I didn't get to speak at St. Thomas. He did. So school is very important. Obviously, if you know anything about me, I've spent a lot of time with anxiety and some depression, and it has really hindered my school learning. Hence why I am just in my first semester of college as opposed to my second. I should have graduated last year. Still technically a PSEO student, not graduated yet. Parks. Minneapolis is weird because the Parks Department is a separate thing. The Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board is a separate thing. It has its own commissioners and everything. But I would want to, if all it is sending money from the city budget to the parks, same with the school board. If it's all I can do is send money from the city of Minneapolis budget to the schools, to the parks, that's fine. I just want to help them. Parks resources, keeping the tennis courts and the basketball courts nice pavement and with obviously nets and hoops so people are inspired to play there. Keeping fields mowed and upkeep just in general for fields. Having more like baseball fields because baseball is one of the hardest sports to play here in Minneapolis. I think the nearest I live in Northeast, and I think the nearest full-size park in Minneapolis that doesn't have a fence around it is probably in North, which it's kind of out of the way. Now, since I played baseball in high school, obviously I had a chance to practice at a field close by, but if I just wanted to play with my parent or my friend, it's kind of hard to do that. Now there are ones in suburbs, so that's why I said in the Minneapolis city limits. The nearest one's probably on north side. Climate. Why doesn't everybody care about climate? Like, is it really the case that people are so self-centered that they don't care about climate because it's not going to affect them because they're going to be dead? Like, the world literally won't be livable in not that long. I don't know the exact science or the exact length, but there's going to be a point where, especially people my age or younger, or a little older, but like my age, and the younger you get, less likely you are that you're gonna have a chance to live. Like, we're in such a decline. So whatever I could do on a city level or a state level to reduce that and to educate about that would be great. Policing. I kind of already mentioned that, but policing, yeah, I don't know why I wrote that down. I ended up talking all about it in safety. So let's talk about a few of my programs. Now, obviously, I'm not running for mayor right now, and if I do, it's not for another 3.5 years. But I do have some program ideas. The possibility of all these, it's tough to know, tough to gauge. But let me just go over them. First off, I don't know if this is even possible on a city charter level due to just how the country and the states are formed, but the Minneapolis firearm ban. This would be serious. This would be like literally, if you are seen, okay, there'd be two classifications. This is just, again, rough drafts of all these, so don't get too angry. But literally having two classes of firearms, because let's be real, I don't like guns, so I don't know much about them in terms of like their classification and the different types. But obviously, there are certain things you're going to be able to do with a weapon, like say an AR-15, that you're not going to be able to do on that same scale with a handgun. So there'd be two classifications: assault weapons and regular firearms, I guess. So it would literally be like you are not allowed to have a firearm in this city of Minneapolis. And again, I don't know. I guess that constitutionally you can't do that. But how it would go is, I should mention, this is a pretty liberal area, so the chances of somebody having like the same guns that they would in the country or in rural areas or even in suburban areas isn't as high. But since it is an urban place, there is probably a higher chance for like handguns and stuff, just because people feel less safe. So I want literally zero guns in Minneapolis. So it would be two situations: you are caught with a gun in your property or outside of your property. Now, in your property, that's tough because how are you going to find that out? So somebody would have to have a just reason to report you, and that could get icky and stuff. So that might be the least plausible part of this. But basically, be caught with a regular gun in your property, it gets taken away. It's like a $500 to $1,000 fine. If you're caught with a regular gun outside of your property, it's like a year in jail. Now, if you're caught with an assault rifle, I believe that there's no reason to have an assault rifle. So if you have an assault rifle, I should say weapon, especially outside of your home, you have intent. I've said this before. You have intent to do something catastrophic. So that would be like you have an assault rifle in your home. That's like 5 years. Outside your home, 10 years, because you clearly want to do something with it. The world. Oh my god, the country. I should say the country's more of a messed up place in terms of this. I mean, the world's pretty messed up too, but the country right now, in terms of firearms, is, what the heck. This would also have a Minneapolis firearm buyback program, where Pretty simple. You can say, hey, I have a gun. Here you go. Safely, like you set it down and walk away and somebody grabs it. I don't know how that works. But I'm blanking on the term right now, but it's that situation where you're under the influence and something happens to you and you can report it and you won't get in trouble for being under the influence. It would be like that. It would be a firearm buyback program where if you do this by a certain date, you have no punishment for having the gun in the first place because you had it before the ban, and that would be for all types of guns. Let's get on a little bit of a lighter topic. The Minneapolis school lunch program would be. Now, this is something I would want to do. All of these are pretty much something I would want to do on a city level, on a state level if I was governor, or on a country federal level if I was president. The school lunch program would be a city-funded thing where we have employees who periodically, regularly, go to each school, and it might just have to be the public schools, or it might be able to grow into the private schools eventually. And they check the quality of the lunches, whether it's liked, because let's be real, you can have the most nutritious meals. If people don't like it, they're not going to eat it. And nutritious, because being hungry does not help with the level of stress schools bring, obviously. Having food you don't want to eat makes it so that you're hungry. Having food that's not nutritious makes it so you're not developing. And you may be hungry because you're not getting all your nutritional needs met. So Minneapolis School Lunch Program, or the Minnesota School Lunch Program, or the American School Lunch Program will just be a program where people go around to every school periodically and make sure the lunches are up to par, and they report back. And if they're not, then we got to do something about it. Mental health professionals in school. I actually wrote a little tweet thread about this where I took the money that Jacob Fry wanted to add to the police budget this year, and I said, for a fraction of this, you could have one mental health professional in every Minneapolis public elementary school and middle school, and 2 in every high school. It might have been 2 in every middle school and high school, and 1 in every elementary school, but I'm pretty sure it was 1 in every elementary and high school and middle school, and 2 in every high school. Again, school is a stressful place. We need people to talk to. You can make great friends with teachers. I have teachers that I like a lot, and if I needed like a safe space, I could go to them. But that's not necessarily their job, and they might not necessarily be trained on that as well. I mean, I'm sure there's some training they're required to have to be an educator, but they deal with so much. Teachers deal with so much. So mental health professionals in schools that are free, that don't, they obviously have to get paid, but they don't require any tuition. Even in the private schools, they don't add anything. Now the next thing is something I've mentioned before on my Instagram page on a video I made, and it's something I came up with all the way back in 7th grade. It is called the Opportunities and Information with Community Businesses Project. What this would be a field trip. So it'd probably have to start out small. Like when I had this idea, it obviously had to be small because it was like a kid I thought of idea, and I wanted to be realistic, where kids who wanted to could go on a field trip like once every other week for like 5 times or something to a business. Now 1 week it might be a co-op grocery store, 1 week it might be a coffee shop, 1 week it might be a art gallery or a museum or anything like that. That's like a community place. So preferably not like a corporation, like a big retailer grocery store. And they would tour it and they would see how it works, because some people want to just start working and not everybody's going to go to college, and that's fine. And it would just give them education about how people live, even if they do want to go to college, So the Opportunities and Information with Community Businesses Project, or a YSIB project, is how we call it. That's OAICWB? Or no, OAIWCB? OYSIB? I don't know. I mean, that is what it is. I can read it, but the abbreviation needs some work. Yeah, that's something that I actually still like the idea of. Food boxes. This would be with the Parks Department. Pretty simple. It would be a big box. You could donate food. Be in the park buildings. You could donate food in the top or in the middle, and you could donate money on the top, and it would go to a local food bank. And there'd be one at like almost every park, or at least one at every park in each region of Minneapolis, and it would go to a local food bank. Osterbuer's football/baseball leagues. This would be, especially on a baseball level, because urban baseball is a lot harder, especially in a northern place like Minnesota. Um, like obviously your best baseball prospects are probably going to be from Texas and California and Florida and Arizona. But the Osterbuer's Baseball League would be 32 teams from 32 different parks from at 3 different levels. It would be higher than parks, maybe even higher than high school. And it would just be a way to get kids from Minneapolis active. And the football league would be the same thing. It would be flag football. It would be the same thing. One thing I would like to do is this. Should I talk about this first or the other thing? I'll just talk about this now because I kind of forgot what the other thing was. As I would want to get new uniforms for all seven Minneapolis public schools, high schools, in terms of football, baseball, and basketball. I wish that was the case, but I would have to do as many sports as I could. I wish I could do it for the 3 sports. It's not that I wish I could only do it for the first 3 sports. It's just those are the ones I like the most. So those are the 3 I always imagined. Yeah, new uniforms for the 7 high schools. The other thing about Osterbuer's Baseball League, what was the other thing? I don't remember. But last thing I'll talk about, the last program, is the football game with the mayor. So what I would do is, again, it would be a flag football game. I'd take one football player from each of the 7 Minneapolis public schools, high schools. Now, there are other high schools, but they typically they don't have their own sports teams. They each have like a partner school that they play with, like Fair and Heritage and Wellstone. They play with other high schools. They're integrated. Football game with the mayor. I'd take one player from each of the 7. One who has academic and athletic excellence, and we'd play a flag football game. It'd be 4-on-4, and it would be at halftime of a Vikings game at US Bank Stadium. Now I choose this because it has the biggest audience. I could do a basketball game too. Now baseball wouldn't be plausible. And soccer and baseball, you need more players. And so it would be I should mention, I don't like watching MLS because, again, it's not the highest level of soccer. Not that I like soccer in general. But it would be 4-on-4, me and 3 players from high schools against 4 players from high schools. If you're not aware, it's Edison, Southwest, South, Washburn, North, Patrick Henry, Roosevelt are the 7. Right? Edison, Patrick Henry, North, Southwest, South, Washburn, Roosevelt. I don't know if I said Washburn the first time. So yeah, that would be fun. It would be an opportunity for kids to get in the spotlight, and it would be really fun. It would have a big audience, 60,000 fans at US Bank Stadium, and it would be once a year, and I think it would be fun. I think this is what I was going to mention. I want to recommend or suggest all after-school activities, or in extracurricular activities, I think is a better word. They don't necessarily have to be after school. They could be on weekends or whatever. But in my inaugural address as a parent or something, or not as a parent, as a mayor, I would say to parents, stuff like, I highly recommend doing sports because they're great for fitness, but any activity is great too because it improves your education, it improves your social skills, and it improves like your organization, kind of, because like you have to do something. It just improves kids, and it's also a great opportunity for kids to do stuff they enjoy and just be happy. So yeah, I recommend that. All right, so you can follow me on Instagram at VoteSellers, follow me on Twitter at VoteSellers, subscribe on YouTube if you're listening to this on Spotify for Jason Sellers Politics. If you're watching this on YouTube, Jason Sellers Politics, I am on Spotify as well, and Twitch VoteSellers. I don't know if I'll ever use that again. Thanks for watching / listening, and I will try to have a guest for next episode.